Hi, this is Richard Blade, the voice of the 80s and KROQ Radio, Go Rock. And you're listening to the voice of 91 Reasons, Jeff Tucker. Totally awesome.
Sir, I want to read you something.
I'm working, Marcella.
Dear Pointe High alumni, can you believe it's been 10 years since you left Grosse Point?
Don't tease me, you know what I do for a living. I just honestly don't know what I have in common with those people anymore. And what am I going to say? Killed the president of Paraguay with a fork. How have you been?
Go see some old friends. Have some punch. Visit with what's her name?
Debbie.
Don't kill anybody for a few days. See what it feels like.
I'll give it a shot.
No, don't give it a shot. Don't shoot anything.
I'm a pet psychiatrist. I sell couch insurance. I lead a weekend men's group. We specialize in ritual killings. Hi, I'm Martin. You remember me?
Oh, I know who you are.
What'd I miss?
What, since you stood me up on prom night and vanished without a word?
Babe, I got you, babe.
I'll come home.
I got you, babe.
I'm putting together a little concern.
You mean like a union?
You in trouble?
Just a moment.
Welcome back, Pointers. You haven't changed a bit.
Don't say that.
What do you do, Martin?
Professional killer.
Oh, good for you. It's a growth industry.
Do you have to do postgraduate work for that, or can you jump right in?
There's a contract out in your life, but I'm not going to do it. It's either because I'm in love with your daughter or I have a newfound respect for life.
That punk is either in love with that guy's daughter or he has a newfound respect for life.
Debbie, I'm in love with you. And I know we can make this relationship work. It's not easy for me. I always control my emotions. I just need time to change. Why don't you just join the union? This union, is there going to be meetings? Of course! No meetings. I want you to think about this, and you don't have to answer it now. But Debbie, will you marry me?
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
It's difficult to start as an actor in Hollywood and continue when you reach adulthood. It's just difficult because you get so identified with being a child actor, no matter how good you are. And there have been some amazing kid actors that simply cannot follow through with an adult career. The two that come to mind that are so big would be Macaulay Culkin from the Home Alone series and Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense. They're still around, but they don't work and they're not revered the way they were when they were kids. And I know that can be tough because the transition is so difficult. You know, you look at Elijah Wood, you know, when Lord of the Rings came along, he was able to transition. He'd done some parts, adult-ish before then. But, you know, the Jodie Fosters of the world, are rare. So when you talk about an actor like John Cusack, what an incredible run he had in the 80s as a teen actor. You know, these were movies that we used to watch again and again and again. And it had a lot to do with the director. We're talking about Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer, which were both directed by Savage Steve Holland. They have that hallmark of his work, of the incredible animation. He's worked steady ever since. He only got to direct a few big movies after those two, which is odd because they were, even if they weren't box office hits, they were certainly, rental store hits. You know, One Crazy Summer was always checked out. Better Off Dead was always off the shelf. And rightfully so, because they're sweet, fun, movies that have a tinge of wackiness to them, which I enjoy, you know, the animation, you know, Bobcat, his friend in Better Off Dead who wants to know the street value of the mountain of snow. It's all great stuff. And then John Cusack. Now, you'd seen John Cusack first in, I don't have his IMDb page up because we're not doing a John Cusack retrospective. But he was, I mean, we used to watch 16 Candles and go, that's John Cusack as one of the nerds in the trunk of the car. And then it culminated, obviously, if you're a kid like me who grew up in the 80s, it culminated, first there was The Sure Thing, which was a Rob Reiner movie, great movie. I mean, talk about wish fulfillment of a sure thing. Who didn't want a sure thing? It's a sure thing. Really? Yes, I'm in. I mean, who wouldn't be in for a sure thing? But he learns a valuable lesson along the way. And the beautiful Daphne Zuniga co-stars in that from Spaceballs and later on Melrose Place. And then what? Nothing. Where is she? Where's Daphne Zuniga? Daphne Zuniga, if you're listening, we still love you. Please continue working. Where have you been? But then, like I was saying, John Cusack closed out the 80s in the seminal, teen romance movie, Say Anything. Cameron Crowe script, indelible image of him standing there, holding the radio, playing Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes to get this is our song, get the girl back. How many guys, show of hands, how many guys, after seeing Say Anything, use that ploy to get their girl back? Show of hands. You. Yes, you. And, looking in the mirror. Yeah, you. Yeah, we all did it. We all took a page from Cameron Crowe and played the song on the radio to get the girl back. Blah, 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 blah. Now, that being said, even though, Say Anything is like the penultimate or, the top of the heap of, romance, I left the theater. Now, I've not seen this movie in a long time, but I left the theater a little upset because maybe it's because I was getting older. And by older, I mean 18, 17, not that old. But I identified quite a bit with the dad because he's raised this girl, played by, Ione Skye. What happened to Ione Skye? Ione Skye, if you're listening, we wonder where you're at. We hope that you're safe and that you'll come be on the show. But he's raised her. She's a straight A student. She's top of her class. And now she's dating a guy who's going to become a kickboxer, who has no prospects for a fruitful and successful life. And he's made out to be the bad guy because, gosh darn it, these two love each other. And that's what's going to get him through. Take my hand. We'll make it, I swear, right? And I just felt like, I think, isn't the dad right to want the best for his daughter? I have a daughter now, so yeah, he is right. And it turns out he's like, if I remember it correctly, he's embezzling money or something from the firm that he works at. So at one point he's in the bathtub, huddled together, crying, and you're supposed to feel, I don't know, like, oh, you bastard, if you'd been nicer to John Cusack, you wouldn't be crying in the bathtub, you monster. But for me, that was kind of the beginning of, this is Cusack's swan song as a teen actor. He's going to move into adult movies, right? And I'm not sure where I fell out of touch, not out of touch, and not out of love, but out of caring. And it sounds so coarse when you say that. I don't know where it went south in my wanting to see John Cusack in movies. I don't know, because when I look at his body of work, he's made good movies. He's made some schlock, but every actor's made schlock. Sometimes it's great schlock, like Con Air. I mean, Con Air is the ultimate in ridiculousness, but it's a entertaining as hell movie. But then, of course, he made like 2012. I mean, that's just schlock, right? But for whatever reason, I just stopped going to see John Cusack movies. Or I would see them and I just go, well, it wasn't that good. And it's no fault of Cusack, because, movies are made by committee. And I'm not sure what happened here. But, I did go see, in 1997, Grosse Point Blank. Now, this episode is sponsored by Hindle, one of the pillars of this show. And he's always picking interesting movies. And this is a movie that virtually everybody I know, including Hindle, loves this movie. I have friends who swear by Grosse Point Blank that it's fantastic. And they would look at me when I'd go, yeah, I didn't really care for it. They go, what, are you stupid? Well, I don't know. Am I? Maybe. I mean, the best part about being stupid is you don't really know. You know, like being crazy. If you're crazy, you're truly crazy. You have no idea you're crazy. So who's going to lament it, right? But it also could have been that 97 was a weird year for me. My mom had just died, and I had a baby within like a month of each other, literally a month of each other. My mom died, and I had a baby. So I went from ultimate turmoil to guess what, you're a dad. And so 97 was a weird year for movies as far as like, there were some movies I saw that I absolutely hated in the theater, like Austin Powers. And then when they showed up on home video, I watched them 1,000 times and ended up naming my kid Austin. So you never know where it's going to go. You know, your emotions and your place in life affects whether you like movies, period. Everybody knows that. So that could have been what happened when I initially saw Grosse Point Blank. So like with any movie that people recommend or go via the Patreon page for me to review, I watch it again. Even if it's like Blade Runner, I've seen it 1,000 times. I watch it again so I can get the fresh perspective on it, right? So I watched Grosse Point Blank. And as always, when I'm watching movies like this for the show, I'm looking to things. Is it a good movie? Is it coherent? What angle am I going to take when I talk about it? Because you can't just talk about the movie. It's got to be something we're talking about that happens to include the movie. And, you know, there's a lot of ways you can tackle a movie like Grosse Point Blank. If you've never seen it, John Cusack plays a hired hitman who kills people for a living, and he botches a job and has to make amends with the people that paid him to do it. And he's also being approached by another hitman played by Dan Aykroyd, who wants him to join like a hitman's union, which he doesn't want to join because he wants to be a loner. So that puts him at odds with Aykroyd, puts him at odds with his employer, and he's given a job to do to make things right with his employer. And they happen to coincide with his 10-year high school reunion back home. So he decides to go back to Grosse Point in Michigan, which is like, I get the play on words, Grosse Point Blank. Haha, that's great. It's a very funny title. But maybe that's part of the problem, is that Grosse Point is ultra rich. Like, we're talking the Beverly Hills of Michigan. These are, each house in 97 was $10 million. Imagine what it would be now. So right away, it's hard to identify with Cusack because he's a hitman, he's a killer, and now we find out he's from the rich part of town. Which, I mean, you don't hate the rich. I'm not one of those people, but it's hard to identify living in an apartment with a guy who goes back home and everybody's house, you can park an airplane in their living room. But, he decides to go back home because he's been telling his shrink, played by one of my favorite actors of all time, Alan Arkin, that he's been hung up on the girl that he dated in high school. So this is a chance to fix his business, fix his hang up with Debbie, and go back home to reset himself because, according to all the promotional materials for this movie, he's having a moment of consciousness where he's going to stop killing. But, you know, you don't really see that in the movie. In the beginning of the movie, he is blasting away at everybody. Like, he is killing people. There's a real fun nod to James Bond, You Only Live Twice, where he drops a string down a ventilation shaft and then pours poison down the string to kill this guy. It doesn't work. That's where the botched one comes out. He ends up having to shoot him. So what was supposed to be a quiet kill job becomes into an incident. But this is one of those movies where, and this is where you start to lose me in the movie, where everything goes right for these people. They never have any kind of strife. And I know he botched the hit, but it's okay because He still got the guy. And what I mean by nothing goes wrong, like, he blasts this guy in the middle of this hotel, and he just walks away. So we're never really shown how he gets out of these situations. Has his identity been erased? Does he pay off the local police? And I know that, like, Jeff, it's a comedy, and that's not the focal point of the movie. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but these are things that, because of the way my brain works, constantly are whirring during the movie, and I have issues with how it's presented, and I know I shouldn't. What do I always say on this show? You're supposed to review the movie you got, right, Noel? Review the movie you got, not the movie you wanted. But it's very difficult to do that, especially people like me, because I'm a self-described flailing screenwriter who's never had a screenplay option. So what do I know, right? But this is a movie of coincidence and happenstance that is perfect for everybody involved. That being said, everybody's operating at the top of their game. It's a vanity project, obviously, for John Cusack, because the entire Cusack family is in it. His sister plays his handler back in the office, and she's the one urging him to go to the reunion. And then if you look at the IMDb page, like, there's a Cusack every 3 or 4 names playing minor parts, which is, that's fine. Who cares? But it is a vanity project. And a lot of times in vanity projects, the main character obviously has to be the one you like, the one you're with, the one who gets everything that he wants. Rarely do you see vanity projects where, unless it's a true story, like I'm counting Bugsy. If you ever see Bugsy with, Warren Beatty, that's a vanity project, except we all know that Bugsy gets blasted at the end, so it has to happen that way in the movie or it's not following the story, because spoiler, Bugsy gets blasted at the end. He's a mobster, go figure. But a lot of times vanity projects are made to, the actor's got an agenda to, there's an ego being stroked here. Again, nothing wrong with that. This is what I'm seeing when I'm watching the movie, right? So, the main issues I have with Grosse Point Blank are its coincidence, its desire to smooth over what could be really good problems in favor of just moving the story forward. And I get, in a screenplay, you have to move the story forward. I'll give you an example. He decides to go to the reunion, obviously, because that's the whole plot of the movie, right? So he decides to go to the reunion. And when he goes back home, he spends quite a bit of time just driving around, which we all would. I get it. Very realistic. Everybody would drive around there. If they had moved away and not seen hometown for 10 years, would drive around. I mean, sometimes I've driven around Norwalk, where I grew up, and you get like a weird kind of nostalgia wave that washes over you, right? He goes to visit his boyhood home, finds out that it's been turned into a convenience store, which is really bizarre. And I only say that because all of us listening have been to a convenience store. We're not the super elite that go, I've never been to one of those 7-Eleven, is it what you call it? No, we've all been to 7-Eleven. We've all been to Circle K. We've all been to A&PM. And we know the kinds of places that they're located. So having him pull into a neighborhood and discover that his house has been turned into a convenience store is just weird, because they don't build convenience stores in neighborhoods. And if you look at the way it's edited, you're never shown like where it is. So it could be a main street. Maybe it's not, but what's missing is a camera trick, a crossfade of his memory of the house and then crossfading into the Unimart. We don't get that. We just get him driving up and going, my house has been turned into a convenience store, which is a funny idea. It's a great screenwriting idea. I mean, talk about you can't go home again. But it just was jarring to me because, like, I'm watching it going, well, they don't build 7-Elevens in neighborhoods. They're always on, they have to be in a busy street or there's no business for them, right? And we'll end up going back to the Unimart later in the movie for a shootout featuring one of my least favorite movie tropes of all time. A movie trope is something, and everybody knows this, but I'll explain, is something that happens in every movie. I'll give you an example of the one that I hate the most. I cannot stand when movie characters stare in the mirror and practice talking. Hello. Nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Tom. Hi, I'm Tom. And you know why? Because nobody does that. No one on their own has ever looked into a mirror and practiced talking unless they got the idea from a movie. It's stupid. It's a shorthand way of letting the audience know this character is nervous. But if you've done your work right, if you set up the scenes properly, we know he's nervous. Guy putting on a tuxedo to go pick up his date is nervous. First date, third date, prom date, guys are nervous. You don't need them in looking in the mirror going, but you know, it's not normally that. Normally it's a job interview. Hello, I'm here for the, we get it. Everybody in the audience has gone out looking for a job. We've all been nervous trying to get a job. So looking into a mirror and practicing how we're going to greet the unknown person that we're being interviewed by is just, I hate it. It's stupid. It's stupid. That being said, the one that they use in this movie is the idea that if you put headphones on and play music, you can't hear anything. And you're not aware of anything going on. I just ruined that word. Peripheral. Let's try it again. Peripherally in your vision. You're not aware of anything going on in your side vision, your peripheral vision, because you're wearing headphones and playing a video game. And how many times have we seen this in a movie? And I hate it. Like, it's even in one of my very favorite movies, True Lies, where the janitor doesn't see the Harrier jet or feel it destroying the building that he's vacuuming. And in this case, the Unimart clerk is playing a video game wearing headphones while Cusack has a shootout with a hitman sent to kill him. It's a cute scene. It's a, very, very movie, in quotes, scene. But it doesn't, and I know, hey, Jeff, you have to suspend disbelief. I know that, Conscience. I know that. Well, it's a movie. John Cusack's a hitman going to his reunion. It's ridiculous on its premise. I know that, Conscience. So when he does scenes like this, you just have to deal with, I know that. But as a human who lives in the human world, I am aware, whether I hear them or not, when there are people in the room. When people move, they move the air around you. A lot of times you just feel a tingling in the back of your head and you turn, someone's there. How many times have you been in your car driving and you stop somewhere at traffic or at a light, you turn over, you know that the guy in the car next to you is staring at you. And when you turn over, there he is. Eye contact, bling. So you just know, people know. But in the movies, man, unless he's a detective or it furthers the plot, they take all of this away from people. They strip people down to blobs of flesh that eat and breathe and stand. But this is nitpicking. I get it. It's not fair to the movie. The crux of the movie is he's got this woman on his mind, the woman that he left 10 years ago. He was supposed to take her to the prom and he stood her up. And this has been in his brain every day since. Now, the Hindle, who recommended this movie, said he knew I didn't care for it initially, but he said, you're going to watch it with different eyes because you're older now. And he's right. When this movie came out, I was only 8 years out of high school. Well, now I'm 27 years out of high school. So, yeah, I have a much different view of life. And though I have never been to a high school reunion, I know what that emotion is of, now I'm married, so it's not like I'm going to go back to the reunion and hook up with, Mary Jane, Petunia who lived down the street, right? It doesn't work that way. That's only in the movies. And you're like, I've seen pictures of some of the reunions and, you ever look at a picture of someone from high school? It's like, you ever look at a picture of someone from high school who you idolized? Like, there were girls in my high school that I thought were the most beautiful women I would ever see on the planet. Unobtainable, untouchable. And then at the reunion, they're standing there in the picture and you're like, oh, they're human after all. They've grown up. They've aged. And that's just nature, folks. So the beauty of the 10-year one in this film is when he goes to find Debbie, who's played by Minnie Driver, it's only, they're still in their 20s. These folks are still young. They're under 30. Age has not caught up with them like the rest of us. I'm 44, folks, so age has caught up with me. I can barely see up. I have to use a magnifying glass like an old man. The doctor told me I needed bifocals, and I was like, no, those are for old people. And the doctor's like, yeah, they are, Mr. Tucker. I said, you know what? I don't like you anymore. So Grosse Point Blank avoids that by making it the 10-year, not the 30. It's different. So, this is my main issue with the film. He's got to patch up this relationship with Debbie because that's what's holding him back and giving him the crisis of conscience that's interrupting his business, right? When he finds Debbie, she has one of those movie jobs. Movie job is a job that you don't have to work every day so that you can be free to date the main character or the other character in the movie. Movie jobs are great. Her movie job is she's a DJ at the local radio station that looks out over Main Street. Like, it's very small townish, even though Grosse Point's very uber rich. The movie might have benefited from being set up in a much smaller, like Podunk town in Oklahoma or something. But, he walks in on her and there's no hurdle to get to Debbie. What I mean by that is he walks in, they have a conversation and they kiss, and it's like the 10 years is gone. Now the hurdle is in her mind because he stood her up. He obviously wants her. That's why he's back. But she's got to put the brakes on this, using just her emotions. I can't commit to this relationship with Martin. His name is Martin Blank. Martin Blank. He's shooting blanks, whatever. Because you stood me up, and until you've paid penance for that, we can't be together. I get it. Debbie is the perfect movie girlfriend. She lets you kiss her within 2 seconds. She's funny. Minnie Driver's not my type, but I get that she's attractive to a huge movie-going segment because she had a pretty good run of movies in the 90s with Good Will Hunting and a bunch of others. Look for her in Goldeneye as the Russian dancer singing Stand By Your Man. Very funny scene. But she's the perfect movie girlfriend because she just says, oh, you're back? Well, we should probably go on a date. Okay, sure. We'll go to the reunion together. And that's just so weird to me because I think, and again, the movie you got versus the movie you wanted, if Debbie had a husband or a boyfriend and we've got to get through him to get these two together, there might have been more of a story arc between these two. Because there's a very bizarre scene where he goes to Debbie's house and within a few minutes, he's lying on her bed, lifting her up like they're ice skating, playing airplane games. Now, I know that's it's supposed to set up to be like, this is what they did when they were in high school, and they're falling back into old routines. But it's very intimate for two characters who have been apart, zero contact, for a decade. So it's a little like, boy, Debbie's a little easy. Now, I know she's not. She's only doing this where Martin is concerned. I totally get that. But there's one of those things where it's like, wow, everybody watched the movie is like, I wish it was that easy to get a girl. Like, he just gets her. And I know they have a prior relationship, and that's why I'm saying there should have been more stumbling blocks between the two of them just automatically falling back into like their old inside jokes and routines and yada yada. I get all that. It just seemed really easy. And I know that we're going to have bigger problems down the line, and that's the point of the movie. We also meet a couple of his high school friends. Jeremy Piven's the one we see the most of. He's a smarmy real estate agent. It's the same character Piven plays in every movie. There's a stock Piven factory that just churns these characters out, right? I like Jeremy Piven. I've never particularly been like a big fan of his, but I think he's funny. He was great in Entourage. I didn't see the movie because I'm too old for that. But Piven sort of becomes like his guide around town with who's living where, who's moved up, yada da 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 da. And it's important because we're going to need Piven later at the reunion. We meet Debbie's dad, played by the very good character actor Orson Bean. Orson Bean provided the voice for one of my favorite animated films of all time, the Rankin Bass Hobbit cell animated movie. He's the voice of Bilbo Baggins. I watched that movie a lot as a kid. He was also in with John Cusack in Being John Malkovich, a fantastic movie, a movie where everybody got it right, even though it makes no sense at all. Anyways, we finally get to the reunion. We see a cameo by Jenna Elfman playing the same exact part John Cusack played in 16 Candles. And the reunion, we're going to do two things. Martin's going to hold a baby and realize he wants a family. Debbie's going to see Martin holding a baby and say, I'll have what she's having, not referring to the drink, referring to life with a baby. Because, you know, having a baby makes everything right, doesn't it? Ask us folks with parents who are parents. We all have parents. Ask us folks who became parents. Do children make everything right? Oh, sure. Oh, I should have kids? Absolutely. So one thing you'll find, folks, people with kids will always tell you to have kids because misery loves company. The other thing that's going to happen at the reunion is the hitman is finally going to show up. Martin has to face him. There's a brutal fight scene in the locker hallway, and Martin kills him. And he gets Jeremy to Piven's character to help him dispose of the body in the school furnace, which is a great idea, except you can imagine what it smelled like Monday morning when they came back to school. But here's the thing. This is one of those movies, like I said earlier, where there are no consequences. I'm an average nervous man. I am. I'm practically Woody Allen in my real life. Constantly looking at the repercussions. Well, if I do this, what will happen? If I do this and this could happen, or this, that's how I live my life. I don't live by the seat of my pants. So Martin killing this guy and disposing the body still leaves blood everywhere in the hallway and a dead, burnt human corpse in the school furnace. But we're not supposed to think about any of that. That is not part of the movie. So you just move on. You just move on from it. So that I have a little trouble with that, you know, and I think that part of the reason that sequence is so jarring, and eventually the finale of the movie is a little jarring, is that we'd actually seen a movie tackle this. And it's the movie that started the 90s trend of all these other movies. It's hard. I mean, you look at the 90s. The first few years, we had some good movies. We had The Rocketeer, Silence of the Lambs, Jurassic Park, and then 94 hits. And 94 is the watershed year. That's the Forrest Gump year that revolutionized the way people looked at special effects. Special effects no longer were about spaceships and aliens. Special effects could be done to make anything. They could make you believe that Tom Hanks met and had a conversation with John F. Kennedy. It was also the year of The Lion King, the movie that said animated movies can make just as much money as blockbuster movies. An animated film could be a blockbuster movie. The Lion King made so much money, even the people who made it were stunned. It was also the year of the movie that we're talking about that sprang from it. Of course, I'm talking about Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino's amazing look at the Los Angeles underground of hitmen and mob bosses and fighters who throw fights. I adored Pulp Fiction. I saw Pulp Fiction in the theater. I was high the rest of the decade off of Pulp Fiction. Everybody else was too. And a lot of movies were begat out of Pulp Fiction. They just simply were. Without Pulp Fiction, 30 or 40 movies in the 90s wouldn't have existed. Pulp Fiction changed what people were looking for in movies. Brought back Travolta's career. Cemented Samuel L. Jackson as the go-to guy for amazing character work. And then he would eventually transition to leading man work. Put Ving Rhames on the map. I mean, did so many things for so many people. Like, it's just amazing what Pulp Fiction did. But all these movies about the crime, criminals, hitmen, mob guys, all came out of Pulp Fiction. And the interesting thing about Pulp Fiction is that the last or the middle portion of the movie deals with when they shoot Marvin in the face in the car. And Jules and Vincent are driving around town in a car covered in blood and brains. And you know what? It's funny. It's played so dark and black comedy that you can't help but laugh. And then they spend a good part of the time having to clean that car because they can't drive around in it. I mean, not only do they clean it, but they clean it and then they have it crushed. Like, to make sure nobody ever finds Marvin or connects them to the crime. They give up that car completely. So when all the rest of the movies that came out after Pulp Fiction that owe their life to Pulp Fiction, when they showed hitmen doing their job and not the aftermath, they left out what made Pulp Fiction so endearing was the follow-through. It's not all just shoot 'em looking cool and then leave. There are consequences to this, you know? So when Martin Blank is leaving behind all these bodies, you're like, well, what happens when the cops show up? Who's paying them off? Who's cleaning the crime scene? But again, this movie's not about that at all. So when Debbie walks in and sees that he's killed this guy in the hallway of the school at the reunion, she runs off. She's done with him. And that's the part of the script where the lead character, it looks as if nothing's going to go right for him. He's in the worst possible situation he can get into. And normally, in a by the number script, you'd have a half hour after that to patch things up and fix the story and give either a happy ending or an ending period. The problem with Grosse Point Blank is that once Debbie discovers that Martin's hasn't been joking, because he's told everybody he's a hitman. Once she discovers he's not joking, and she confronts him at his hotel room, I checked the running time. We've only got 15 minutes. And even I was like, oh my gosh, well, we're going to wrap this up quick, aren't we? And there's nothing wrong with wrapping it up quick. The best example is North by Northwest, where, if you've ever seen this movie, it's fantastic. Cary Grant plays a guy who's mistaken for a spy. And the finale takes place on Mount Rushmore, where I'm going to get it all wrong because it's been a while since I've seen it. But a lot of things are converging to kill Cary Grant on the top of Mount Rushmore. He is holding the female lead by the hand. She's about to fall. The hitmen are about to kill him. They're going to shoot him. And everything is wrapped up in like 12 seconds. And when he pulls her up from Mount Rushmore, they quick cut to a train car. Say that 5 times fast. And he pulls her in and they're happy, in love, about to get physical. And the movie ends. And they go from climax to credits in, I think it's under a minute. It's very abrupt. Now, it's very satisfying, but it's also very abrupt. So I get that you can do it, but I'm not comparing whoever directed this to Alfred Hitchcock, for God's sake. But it was fascinating to me that I knew, having seen the movie before, we were leading to a big shootout. And I thought, gosh, how are they going to have a big shootout and fix this situation with Debbie in 14 minutes? So Debbie has words with him. She can't deal with him. She thought he was joking. He has no regard for human life. He tells her now he does. He's had an epiphany. He's changed his life. He wants to give up his business. He calls Joan Cusack back at the office, tells her to burn everything, gives her a stack of money, and closes that story out. He's no longer a hitman, other Now, we have to assume that he's got a lot of money stashed away to start a new life. Because the other thing that bothers me about movies like this is, and I get, the movie's either about having money problems or it's not. And if it's not, they never even address it. Those of us who live in the real world know that every day is about money problems. Nobody ever feels like they have enough money to do everything they want to do, to eat what they want to eat and buy what they want to buy. It's a constant struggle every day. It never goes away. We live in a capitalist society, so money problems are part and parcel of the freedom to make as much money as you want versus how much do you need to live? So when Martin tells her he's quitting, you just have to assume he's got, what's the word I'm looking for? Bus station lockers full of cash all over the world, we have to wait until that scene between him and Debbie to even get Martin's whole story. Up until then, and again, the movie's got 14 minutes left. Up until that point, we're really not like, what is Martin's deal? Well, he freaked out because he was having homicidal thoughts. I mean, is that I think if I heard that right. So he joined the army where they can hone that, and they discovered that, yes, he has homicide. I mean, he goes, well, no, psychopaths kill for nothing. I kill for money. Wait, that didn't come out right. So it's all mixed in there that he's a bit of a sociopath. He's able to kill people and not have any bad feelings or conscience about it. And the minute he has a conscience about it, he's going to get out of the game. So Martin's story is he's becoming human. He's got to convince Debbie of that so she'll go with him, because Debbie is the anchor to a normal life that he desperately needs. We have to assume that if he doesn't get with Debbie by the end of this movie, he will go back to being a killer. He'll go back to being the worst hitman the world's ever seen, because he will have tried to become human, been rebuffed, and thrown out of society. He'll be back to the fringes. Now, we know that's not going to happen, but I'm saying, what if? So in his mind, Debbie is the lifeline that he has to have, or he's dead inside. So we've met some NSA agents, notably played by, I'm not sure who the other actor was, but Hank Azaria is one of the actors. And Martin finally opens. It's just so weird. Like, it didn't even occur to me, like, he didn't open the dossier on who he's supposed to be killing in Grosse Point. Like, you know that the hit guy is after him. So when he kills that guy, you're like, well, took care of that. Oh, wait, he had a job to do. That's why he's in Grosse Point. We've been so embroiled in the reunion and Debbie that we forgot that he's actually in town to do something. So when he finally opens the dossier, he discovers very conveniently that the victim, the mark, is Debbie's father. Debbie's father, there's some rigmarole about he works for the auto industry and he's going to testify about some sunroof malfunction. It's all buried in the dialogue very quickly because you're not supposed to dwell on it. So all the hitmen are going to kill Debbie's father, and Martin has been hired to do the very thing. So now he knows not only is he getting out of the business, but he's really getting out of the business because he's going to thwart the attempts to kill Debbie's father, right? So Aykroyd shows up, still talking about having him join a union. He doesn't want to be in the union. A bunch of nameless thugs show up. Martin, now it's a very clever sequence where he's talking to Debbie about their relationship. At the same time, he's shooting the bad guys. It's very well edited. It's very well choreographed. It's not over the top. We know where the characters are. We know the geography. We know what's at stake. We get all that. And every time he goes up to the bathroom to talk to Debbie, he's more and more injured and damaged. By the end, he's completely bloodied, almost Pulp Fiction, not Pulp Fiction, Bruce Willis and Die Hard. I got Bruce Willis confused. There's a Bruce Willis, Pulp Fiction standee in the Unimart, just for those keeping track. He ends up dispatching Aykroyd by throwing a TV on his head and procures Debbie and her father. Now, Debbie's father immediately says, I consent to the marriage. You've saved my life. And The movie ends with Debbie and Martin driving away from Grosse Point, sort of starting their life together. And, again, it's not a bad movie. It's a very well put together movie. It's got some fun scenes, some fun elements. But I think because I'm such a weirdo, and I'll totally blame myself, the reason it doesn't work for me as a movie is that we never see how he gets out of these scrapes. When he leaves Debbie's father's house, there are, I think, 5 or 6 dead hitmen, 2 dead NSA agents, a house full of bullets, and her father, who, even though this wave of killers has been stopped, really needs to be shown being put into the witness protection program to avoid being killed again after, like, Martin leaves. Like, if you knew that your daughter was dating a hitman who had a arsenal of weapons and knew how to use them, and you were being targeted by the mob, would you let this guy out of your sight? You go, look, you're going to marry my daughter. That's great. Right in front of me. You guys are never leaving me. We're going to sit in this living room and have pizza delivered for the next 6 years until I croak, because otherwise I'm going to get shot. I know the movie needs to end on that high note of Debbie and Martin starting their life together. Martin has become human because of Debbie's love. Debbie has seen him as somebody worthy of her love because he sacrificed this other life that he had for her. It ends with the radio station on a tape. Like she's recorded, almost like, yeah, it's how Good Morning Vietnam ends, right? With him on a plane and they're playing a tape of his last show, the Adrian Cronauer. But we don't get, not closure, because we get closure. We don't get cleanup. And I know that's petty, and I totally agree that it's petty for me to say that about the movie. But that's what I got out of it. That being said, I think the soundtrack is one of the best of the 90s. It's all 80s music. It's all put in the film to punctuate the scenes, to set the tone for when they graduated. It's an 80s throwback movie. Like I said, it did come out of Pulp Fiction, there's no doubt. But it might have been the first movie of its kind to set up that other weird subgenre of hitmen talking to shrinks. Did you know this was a subgenre? Absolutely it is. Because the great Alan Arkin, who ends up destroying his answering machine. Remember those? We only know Martin at the beginning because he's talking to a shrink. It's a storyteller's device. Martin either talks to himself, narrates to the audience, or talks to a shrink. It's the only way we're going to know who he is, what his problem is, and why we have to fix it. I had the Debbie dream again. I've been having it every day for the last 10 years. Blah, he's got to tell Arkin that, or we don't know it. That's a screenwriter's device. It's the same way you show the new guy starting the job so that somebody can explain to the new guy and to us, the audience, what the job is. But the subgenre of bad guys talking to shrinks continues with, there's a movie called Gun Shy where Liam Neeson is a hitman with a crisis of conscience. Analyze This, Analyze That. Both of those movies are about Robert De Niro talking to Billy Crystal. The Sopranos is about Tony Soprano talking to Lorraine Bracco. I mean, that's a bunch of movies about bad guys talking to shrinks. I think Grosse Point Blank was the first. I mean, the screenwriter, Tom Mankiewicz, I think his name is, created a subgenre. I mean, that's rare. It's rare most movies are just derivative. This guy started, there might have been one before it, but I can't think of it. Where a bad guy talks to the shrink, you know? Doc, I've been having these problems and these dreams. Tell me more about it. And look into the camera when you do. It's not a bad movie. I would recommend people watching. It's fun. I'd put it right alongside. There's another great 90s movie about high school reunions. Of course, Romy and Michele's High School Reunion, a very fun movie. There were a bunch of these about Generation X getting older, going back to their roots, discovering that everything's changed. At the same time, some things have always stayed the same. And that's just, folks, that's just life. So thanks to Hendel for recommending Grosse Point Blank. it's a pretty good movie. It's not a bad movie. I wouldn't watch it again, but I enjoyed watching it. It wasn't like work. It wasn't like Food Fight, for God's sake. John Cusack's a very competent actor. 1408 was a pretty cool movie. There's a bunch of Cusack movies you could watch. And this just happens to be one of them, But thanks to Hendel for supporting the show on Patreon. Your support means the world to me. Obviously, I can't do the show without that kind of support. It's expensive to host and to further the show. Heck, I've always said I'm doing the show on a microphone Hendel bought for me. So I am forever in debt to Hendel and the other great listeners of this show. We have another Patreon review coming up very soon. Michael Bonnie's picked another cool movie. So if you'd like to have your own movie reviewed on 91 Reasons, check out our Patreon page. Just go to Patreon and search 91 Reasons. You could support the show with as little as $1, and every dollar helps, goes right to the show. Thank you so much to our Patreon pledgers. And to everybody who supports the show in every way that you do. Coming up, we're going to be filming a movie at my house. A production company wants to film a movie here. We're not getting any money for it, but we're supporting independent film, and we'll get a screen credit for 91 Reasons. That's pretty cool, right? I'll be at Comic-Con in 2.5 weeks. I'll be there all 4 full days wearing my 91 Reasons vest. And then the week after that is Midsummer Scream, where 91 Reasons will have a table on the show floor. We'll be doing interviews, passing out movie buttons, because I got 1 million of them from all my convention trips, and saying hi. So come find us at Midsummer Scream, the end of July at the Long Beach Convention Center. Check out Midsummer Scream on Facebook as well. Thanks to everybody who's listening. I am not a hitman, but I like to watch hits, man. Boy, that's stupid. That's really stupid. Let's just say, thanks for tuning in. I am Jeff Tucker. I am the voice, and this is 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
Just a quick announcement that 91 Reasons is going to be at the Midsummer Scream Halloween Festival, July 30th and 31st at the Long Beach Convention Center. This is put on by Creepy LA and Theme Park Adventure. They're good friends of the show. 2 days of frights, freaks, spooks, and scares. If you buy a ticket, and you should, it includes admission to dozens of presentations from creative professionals, celebrities, and influencers from in and around the horror, entertainment, and Halloween industry, along with a massive show floor, on-site haunts, and more. A full range of talks and presentations on local ghost lore, the craft of monster making, and the design of haunted attractions, immersive and interactive theater, and previews of upcoming Halloween events and attractions, all from the people who make it happen. They're going to have Not Scary Farm's going to be there. I'll be hosting that event. Imagineers, Queen Mary Dark Harbor, Universal Studios. There's an Oingo Boingo dance party. I mean, there's so much going on at the Midsummer Scream, July 30th and 31st at the Long Beach Convention Center. Go to midsummerscream.org. Get your tickets. If they ask how you heard about it, say you heard it on this show, 91 Reasons. I will be there both days. 91 Reasons will have a table in the showroom. We'll be doing interviews on site, talking to fans, whatever you want. Stop by, tell a story. We'll record it and we'll put it on the show, and it'll be preserved forever on this crazy, insane show. So once again, 91 Reasons is proud to partner up and be a part of Midsummer Scream Halloween Festival, July 30th and 31st at the Long Beach Convention Center. It's local, it's easy to get to, parking is cheap and right by the door. It's not like some of that, like Comic-Con. I mean, Comic-Con, forget about it. You're going to hear our stories about next month's Comic-Con, and you're going to want to die. No, Midsummer Scream is going to be easy to get to, fun to go to. If you love Halloween as much as I love Halloween, you are going to want to be there. You can see Austin and talk to him about gourmet chicken strips. Josie will be there to talk about being the world's youngest scare actor in a Halloween event. I will be there interviewing and trying not to be in yours because I'm not photogenic. Rachel will be there talking from across the room. Luna will be there. The whole Tucker family will be there. All of 91 Reasons at the Midsummer Scream, July 30th and 31st at the Long Beach Convention Center. Go to midsummerscream.org to get your tickets and tell them you heard it right here on 91 Reasons.